It's a big message for China as well. Prime Minister reiterates his commitment to Indo-Pacific, says region is a shared concern, claims region must be free from anyone's domination. Prime Minister talked tough on terror, says there cannot be any ifs or buts in dealing with terrorism, urges world to overcome forces sponsoring and exporting terror. Prime Minister vows America receives 15 standing ovations, 79 rounds of applause during his address to the joint session of US Congress. From Sundar Pichai, Satya Nadella, Indra Nui, Mukesh Ambani to Anand Mahindra and others, global icons attend state dinner with the Indian Prime Minister. His popularity on display in the US as well. American lawmakers click selfies with the Prime Minister, queue up for autographs. Opposition leaders to kickstart Mission 24 at Patna today. 18 opposition parties to join hands, set to chalk out plan to take on the BJP. As the opposition comes on one stage, no clarity on whether Aam Aadmi Party will attend or skip the unity show. Yesterday, Arvind Kejriwal set an ultimatum for the Congress: make your stand clear on the Delhi ordinance brought by centre or else. Well, it was a toast to growing friendship, a friendship for greater good. Today, we saw two powerful leaders come together to celebrate their friendship and raise a toast like never before for dosti, diplomacy and growing ties between two powerful countries. From Natu Natu to Halloween celebrations, both Biden and Modi hailed the growing proximity between India and America, complementing each other and the growing ties between India and the US.
आज राष्ट्रपति बाइडेन और मैंने अनेक विषयों पर विस्तार से गहन चर्चा की, लेकिन फिर भी ऐसा लग रहा था कि समय कम रह गया। मेरा आग्रह है कि आप सभी एक टोस्ट में मेरा साथ दें। ये टोस्ट टू आवर वंडरफुल होस्ट प्रेसिडेंट बाइडेन एंड डॉक्टर जिल बाइडेन। ये टोस्ट टू गुड हेल्थ, prosperity and the pursuit of happiness, to liberty, equality and fraternity, and to the everlasting bonds of friendship between India and the United States. Cheers. Cheers. Thank you.
As two great democracies, in the bustle of our work, India and the United States hear the cry and the call of destiny to take our nations and the world forward to a future worthy of our dreams, a future of greater prosperity, opportunity, liberty, equality for all, and for the good of the world. Because it's only when every person can grasp their fullest potential that we as nations can achieve our highest purpose. And may we always remember that it's our people that give our partnership strength. From all the backgrounds and beliefs, they inspire us, challenge us, tell us the truth, and push us forward. They're the reason our democracies endure, evolve, reflect, and renew generation after generation.
While the state dinner was a star-studded affair, Prime Minister Modi had a packed schedule on day 2 of his state visit, complete with bilateral talks addressed to the US Congress and more. And as the entire world watched, the PM chose a global platform to give some big messages, starting with rejecting repeated insinuations about how India is not safe for its minorities, repeated charges by certain motivated quarters that free speech is under siege. During his interaction with the press, the Prime Minister emphatically and unequivocally asserted that India is not just a country that holds democracy dear, it is in fact the mother of democracy.
मुझे आश्चर्य हो रहा है कि आप कह रहे हैं कि लोग कहते हैं नहीं, भारत डेमोक्रेसी है, और जैसा राष्ट्रपति बाइडेन ने कहा, भारत और अमेरिका दोनों के डीएनए में लोकतंत्र है। लोकतंत्र हमारा स्पिरिट है, लोकतंत्र हमारी रगों में है, लोकतंत्र को हम जीते हैं और हमारे पूर्वजों ने उसको शब्दों में ढाला है संविधान के रूप में। और हमारी सरकार लोकतंत्र के मूलभूत मूल्यों को आधार लेकर के बने हुए संविधान के आधार पर चलती है। और हमारा संविधान और हमारी सरकार, और हमने सिद्ध किया है डेमोक्रेसी कैन डिलीवर। और जब मैं डिलीवर कहता हूं तब कास्ट, क्रीड, रिलीजन, जेंडर, किसी भी भेदभाव को वहां जगह नहीं होती है। और जब हम लोकतंत्र की बात करते हैं तब अगर ह्यूमन वैल्यूज नहीं है, ह्यूमैनिटी नहीं है, ह्यूमन राइट्स नहीं है, फिर तो वो डेमोक्रेसी है ही नहीं। और इसलिए जब आप डेमोक्रेसी कहते हैं, जब डेमोक्रेसी को स्वीकार करते हैं और जब हम डेमोक्रेसी को लेकर के जीते हैं, तब डिस्क्रिमिनेशन का कोई सवाल ही नहीं उठता है। और इसलिए भारत सबका साथ, सबका विकास, सबका विश्वास, सबका प्रयास, उन मूलभूत सिद्धांतों को लेकर के, और इसलिए हम चलते हैं। भारत में सरकार के जो बेनिफिट्स हैं वो एक्सेस टू ऑल है, जो भी उसके हकदार हैं उन सबको मिलते हैं। इसलिए भारत के लोकतांत्रिक मूल्यों में कोई भेदभाव नहीं है, न धर्म के आधार पर, न जाति के आधार पर, न उम्र के आधार पर, न भूभाग के आधार पर।
Now, at the same joint press conference with President Biden at the White House, Prime Minister Modi asserted that for the partnership between India and US, even the sky is not the limit.
आज का दिन भारत और अमेरिका के संबंधों के इतिहास में एक विशेष महत्व रखता है। आज की हमारी चर्चा और हमारे द्वारा लिए गए महत्वपूर्ण निर्णयों से हमारी कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव ग्लोबल स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप में एक नया अध्याय जुड़ा है, एक नई दिशा और नई ऊर्जा मिली है।
And after this joint press briefing, Prime Minister Modi addressed the sitting of the US Congress in Washington. There was thunderous applause during the 58-minute blockbuster speech. The Prime Minister gave a big warning to terror backers and said that there cannot be any ifs or buts, no caveats when it comes to dealing with terrorism.
More than 2 decades after 9/11 and more than a decade after 26/11 in Mumbai, radicalism and terrorism still remain a pressing danger for the whole world. These ideologies keep taking new identity and forms, but their intentions are the same. Terrorism is an enemy of humanity, and there can be no ifs and buts in dealing with it.
Now, even as the speech got over, there was standing ovation. There were 79 rounds of applause from the congressmen. The US lawmakers subsequently even lined up to get autographs of the Prime Minister and selfies with him. Prime Minister Modi thundered that when he first visited the US as PM, India was the 10th largest economy in the world. Today it is the 5th largest and is well on its way to soon become the world's 3rd largest economy.
Among close friends, I'm happy to share the same. Mr. Speaker, When I first visited the US as a Prime Minister, India was the 10th largest economy in the world. 10th. Today, India is the 5th largest economy. And India will be the 3rd largest economy soon. We are not only growing bigger, but we are also growing faster. When India grows, the whole world grows. After all, we are 1/6 of the world's population.
All right, and joining us this morning on the broadcast, we have Ambassador Deepak Vora, former Special Advisor in Africa to the Prime Minister, Karan Verma, author, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, political analyst, Shyam Prasad Mekha, leader of the Congress, Tehseen Poonawala, political analyst. But I want to first go across to Salvatore Babanis, who's the Executive Director of the Indian Century Roundtable. Mr. Babanis, very interesting that the Prime Minister's US visit again became a battleground between those who are convinced and who know, in fact, that India is a robust democracy and those who are intent to prove that it is not. What did you make of the Prime Minister's comments on democracy?
The Prime Minister's comments were rather anodyne and what you'd expect from an Indian Prime Minister. Of course, they're correct, but they don't really go to the root problem. The root problem is that perceptions of India in the United States are not driven by facts or data. They're driven by activist agendas. And I think that's something that really has to be addressed. You may have noted that even Jake Sullivan, the U.S. National Security Advisor, when he received questions about human rights in India, he didn't even deny that there were problems. He simply said that, we will let India work out its problems, right? Well, U.S. officials need to be better educated about what's really going on in India. We actually have very good data about India. We know that, both Muslims and Christians in India face lower levels of discrimination, self-reported discrimination on surveys than any major minority group in the United States, far lower than African Americans or Hispanic Americans, and even rather lower than Asian Americans. Now, if that kind of data, and that's data that's coming out of the Pew Research Center, an American think tank, well, if that kind of data is not getting to the National Security Advisor in the United States, something's really wrong here.
It's also interesting to see the kind of response that was given by leaders like Ro Khanna, like Nikki Haley, who pretty much called out their own colleagues who were behaving more like activists than congressmen.
Well, that's true, but I don't think the problem is the overt activists. Of course, we expect the overt activists to be activists, and that's not really a problem. The problem is that the adults in the room, that is those who are supposed to have the information at their disposal, people have the CIA at their disposal to collect data, aren't aware of the social scientific survey data that are produced in the United States about India. Now, if we can't get high quality, already existing social survey data to the president and the national security advisor in the United States, we have a serious failure of intelligence.
In fact, here is what Nikki Haley said. I'll quickly quote it to our viewers. AOC and the squad boycotting India's democratically elected leader while they side with Palestinian terrorists and socialist dictators is exactly on brand. What an embarrassment. Is there a greater recognition now, not just in the United States, but across the world, that you cannot foist your ideas or the ideas of a certain set of people on how the rest of the world should behave?
Look, I'm glad that Nikki Haley is pushing against that, but this is not an issue of how India should behave. And forgive my saying, even you to some extent are buying into this narrative that India is behaving in a way that the U.S. would not approve of, but of course it's a sovereign country, so it has the right to do so. That's the Joe Biden narrative, that's been the elite American narrative, that's the Jake Sullivan narrative, but that's a false narrative. In reality, India performs very well on the metrics that we set up for democracies, whether it's treatment of minorities, whether it's press freedom, whether it's safety for reporters. We have hard data on all these things that actually show India performing up to expectations of countries like the United States and areas like the European Union. So there doesn't need to be the kind of nationalist pushback of how dare you criticize us, we'll do things our own way. In fact, the hard data show that India is meeting those expectations. And if that data isn't making its way to the Oval Office, then that's a failure of American intelligence.
No, absolutely. What I meant was that what the congressman who boycotted Prime Minister Modi's speech, their idea of what democracies should be like, India is pushing back against that. We are a very robust democracy. We are an absolutely functional democracy. It's this biased idea that we are pushing back against. Final word to you, the Pew Research, the statement of the Prime Minister, what he said, not just in the joint address, but before that in the press conference, are we going to see an end to this whole India is a dead democracy, press freedoms are restricted? Are we going to see an end to that debate once and for all?
Look, no, absolutely we're not. And the reason we're not is, again, I'm sorry to reiterate, but the adults in the room, instead of saying that India is a sovereign country and India should be able to deal with its own problems. That's been the standard response. That was Joe Biden's response when asked about this. India is a sovereign country and it'll handle its own problems. We'll speak softly to them about the human rights violations we see and leave it for them to solve them. That narrative has to be reversed. Until that narrative is reversed, until we get an accurate view of India, not simply well, India can solve these problems on its own, we shouldn't try to impose our values on India, but until we get the idea that no, American values are well reflected in India. I mean, I'll give you just one statistic. Using data from the Committee to Protect Journalists, an activist organization that has repeatedly called out India, we find, or at least I find in my research using their data, that journalists are actually safer in India, by far safer than in the United States of America. Journalists face 50% more violence in the United States than they do in India. Now, that's a narrative that would completely counter everything that the U.S. establishment seems to feel about India. But until those facts get out there, we'll never get an accurate vision of India in the West.
Salvatore Babanus, thank you very much for joining us. We are in the middle of election season. So yes, you are right that even domestically, we are only going to see this entire narrative get shriller, and ultimately the people of India who will push back and say, thanks, but no thanks. We know what we are. Thank you very much for joining us. The congressman, in fact, yesterday admitted also that Prime Minister Modi's address. Now, remember, this entire address was very specific in its aims and objectives, because this was India's voice to the world. We don't need to be lectured. We are very clear about our goals. Our communities, every single community is not just thrives, but survives. Not just survives, but thrives in India. We are very clear about our economic goals, our development goals, where we stand vis-a-vis terrorism, the global south, our neighborhood, and our worldview. And that is why this is the kind of reception, this is the kind of response that speech got from the U.S. congressman. Listen into a few reactions.
Well, it's exciting.
How has the relationship between the two countries evolved over the years?
Well, to me, it's gotten stronger. And then I'm thrilled to find out that indeed the economy of India has moved from number 10 to number 5 and soon to be number 3. We want a growing India, a prosperous India. Already, the middle class of India is the largest middle class of any country on earth. And that's opportunity. And I'm really excited for the people of India. And any way that we can back up this relationship, it's mutually beneficial. And it also promotes peace through strength.
Yes, ma'am. My major takeaways from this talk were the uniting, all of the amazing peaceful negotiation and wonderful connection that the United States and India will have going forward. It was an amazing speech, one of the best I've heard.
All right, let me go across to our guest, Shyam Prasad Meka. The world is recognizing what India stands for, most importantly, vis-a-vis democracy. What do you make of the Prime Minister's response?
Yeah, I'm happy that the visit went well and the Prime Minister delivered a reasonably good speech, though I personally might see a couple of items to be mentioned which were not, which is okay. It's a good step in the direction of India-US relations.
Abhijit Iyer Mitra, it was also interesting that the Prime Minister specifically underlined right at the beginning of his address that when on foreign soil, you need to speak in one voice. You think that was addressed to anyone in particular?
Well, I think he's addressed it several times before, but I don't think the intended audience ever gets it, do they? I mean, it's just become a comedy show now of the person who it's intended at going on foul-mouthing his country abroad over and over and over again. I mean, you know, what do you do with the incorrigible? What do you do with the untrainable? What do you do with the serial college dropouts who have never completed a college degree, but claim XYZ is their alma mater? There's nothing much you can do about it. And, you know, I've been watching certain major opposition party Twitter handles behave literally like prepubescent children, not even pubescent children. So, you know, it's really, on one hand, you have something, well, I don't think the visit was particularly substantial, but, you know, something that's lovely, that's meant for all Indians, with the Indian Prime Minister, not the head of the BJP, the Indian Prime Minister out there. And you have people behaving in the most extraordinarily churlish, childish fashion humanly possible.
All right. Opening comments, Tehseen Poonawalla. Intended domestic audience. And even as we speak, we've had President Biden tweet together the United States and India will shape the future as we work towards a world that is open, prosperous, secure, and resilient. Most defining relationship of the 21st century is what the US president called it yesterday.
Good morning. Good morning, Padmaja. Good morning to you, to all your viewers, to all your panelists, and most important, good morning to the Times Now team. It is the coverage relentless from last night. You guys have been up. If if Prime Minister Modi works 24 hours, I can say Times Now also works 24 hours. So many, many congratulations to all of you for fantastic coverage. And I mean this. Look. I agree with certain things Abhijit says, though I continue to disagree with the BJP. And I said this last night on Navika's show. I may disagree with the BJP, but I wish the Prime Minister success, because in his success lies India's success. So to that extent, I am with our Prime Minister. I do agree with what President Biden tweeted, that India and America will be the defining partnership of the 21st century. As India's regional ambitions grow, as conflicts grow in the South Pacific and Indian Ocean, as we will compete with China, which does want to be the second superpower in a world which is today dominated with one superpower, which is the United States of America. It is a unipolar world with an emerging China. India will play a very, very important role. India does shares common visions. India shares a common democracy and common culture with the United States, which I think will be great. I think what India needs to now start doing is punching above her weight. And I think with Prime Minister Modi and with whoever comes in, we need to punch a lot more above our weight. We need to start extracting a lot more from the United States of America than at this moment US is extracting from India. And I say this with complete responsibility. I do believe this is a partnership of equals. I do believe so. But I think right now, India gives a lot more in this partnership. We need to get a lot more from the United States of America. We've done that in the past with Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and Prime Minister Vajpayee. And I think Prime Minister Modi, to that extent, hasn't been able to push the United States of America. We need to extract a lot more from the United States. In my next remarks, I will tell you what we need to extract.
All right. So, you know, at least the message of speaking in one voice has filtered through to some back home. But one comment from you, some of the other commentary I'm reading early this morning, just after the Prime Minister's speech, Ambassador Vora, Modi-Biden talk of values has one purpose, says a commentator. Strengthening the cause of democracy is not it. That is what one freshly minted op-ed is saying. When Narendra Modi and Joe Biden complement each other as torchbearers of democracy and champions of global stability, they'll be trading stock phrases bleached of meaning and substance.
Well, thank you very much, ma'am. Always a pleasure, and I've been watching your amazing channel, so it's great to be here. I speak 7 languages fluently. None of them can I find the words to describe how good you are. So thank you, ma'am. America is a young country, young civilization. We're a young country with an ancient civilization. America is being dragged kicking and screaming into the harsh world of here and now. Whether we punch above our weight or not, we, in diplomacy, we are trained not to. We understand where we are coming from and where we are going. Ma'am, in the last 2 or 3 years, I would be very happy to know who are America's friends with the same intensity that they were earlier. Forget about the European chamchas. Forget about South Korea. Forget about Japan, Australia, and so on. These are allies. It has lost the Middle East. It has lost Africa. It has lost Latin America. It has lost a number of countries in Asia. There was a time when a certain Barack Hussein Obama went to China, I think it was in 2015, and there was talk of a G2. I'll take care of the Western Hemisphere and you take care of the Eastern one. And the Chinese said, look, Tiger, that's great, you can do it, but I have an elephant sitting here. I have a brick wall, and I don't know how to deal with that, and that brick wall is called India. So that idea died very quickly. So America today, ma'am, needs friends. And what America wants in Asia is peace and stability. We talk of the Indo-Pacific. In the Pacific Ocean, America can fend for itself. But in the Indian Ocean, if we want to keep the sea lanes open, 80% of our trade still goes by sea and most of it passes through. You have all these figures through the Indo-Pacific, through the South China Sea and so on. If you want to keep that open, your best bet is India. I can't think of any other country with a very powerful navy, the third most powerful in the world, the third largest military in the world, and tremendous military power, economic power, tremendous clout. India is the choice. America has chosen India, and if I may quote from an ancient, from a blurb that I used to love, when they say we have chosen India as our partner, I would say, yahi hai right choice, baby. You've done well to choose India as your partner, because we are giving you what you want at no cost to yourself. Yes, you're giving us the engines, you're giving us the drones, we'll convert them into dronacharyas, we'll do what we have to. We fought the Chinese in 2020. Ma'am, we dented the image of the People's Liberation Army. I know what I'm talking about. I was orphaned in 1962 when they attacked us. So I know what I'm saying. Our military has given them a befitting response. That has smashed the image that they had cultivated, that we are unbeatable. So China is also undergoing a reality
But you know, I just want to ask you a follow-up on that. Yes, India is indispensable to the United States right now, but a lot of people are interpreting what you say to mean that, oh, you know, India is what was yesterday said in an interview, an illiberal democracy, but yet US is doing business with us because of our positioning, because of where we stand vis-a-vis China. That's not really the case.
No.
The fact that we are a democracy is very clear on the one hand, and that we are a powerful counterweight to China is the other issue.
Many people also talk about the past experience that India has had with the United States. Ma'am, God has given us eyes in the front of our head, not at the back. We don't look back, ma'am. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, when he visited the United States in 2016, was it? He talked about overcoming the hesitations of history. We have to sweep them aside. The cobwebs have to be eliminated. We have to look ahead. We are at a climacteric in our world today, where if we want peace and stability in the most vital region of the world, the most active region, then India is an indispensable player. Now, is China going to be the Chinese bull in the China shop? Yes, China is its own worst enemy. If the United States doesn't have too many friends, I think China has 1 or 2, not even friends. They are the, if I may name that country, ma'am, with due respect, the Pakistan Autonomous Region of China and the North Korea Autonomous Region of China, like the Tibet Autonomous Region, whatever. They don't have any friends. They just don't know how to make friends.
I think Tehseen Poonawala wants to respond to you, but before that, Karan Verma. First thoughts, first comments on what we saw over the last 12 hours.
You know, Padmaja, it's been a proud moment for every Indian. We see a new resurgent India, an India that walks into the US on its own terms. Even during these acrimonious times where we had the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the Russia-Ukraine war, India has walked on its own terms. India has increased its buy of oil from Russia. and it's unapologetic about keeping its interests above everything. And still, not only does the US want to do business and keep relations with India, they actually understand that India is indispensable today. India is not just an economic, cultural, or a military might. Today, India has its reach, its tentacles everywhere. Today you look at US, we have Indians in dominating positions there as well, whether it's in politics, whether it's in tech. So Prime Minister Modi embodies all of that, and he has walked the talk. When somebody talks of democracy or minorities, the three flagship schemes of the Prime Minister has more Muslim beneficiaries than other communities. So he's walked the talk as far as delivering Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas is concerned, which is why we see him representing the confident and resurgent India that we see today. Not only is India indispensable, I'll go a step further and say that for India to march to greater heights today, Prime Minister Modi perhaps is also indispensable for India.
Okay, Tehseen Poonawalla, you wanted to respond.
I absolutely adore Karan. He's a fabulous friend, but nobody in a democracy is indispensable.
That's the great thing about mornings. By evening, everyone is so crabby, nobody adores each other. In the morning, you wake up, everyone's so happy and full of love.
Listen, I'm always in the same...
You praise Mr. Modi straight off the bat, then you adore. The next thing you know, you'll be hugging Abhijit Mitra. This is dangerous for TV debates. Go on, Tehseen.
We hug all the
time. I do that.
Even in the evenings.
He'll agree to it. But listen, I'm in the same mood all through the day, and I do adore Karan, but I think where Karan is factually wrong. Nobody in a democracy is indispensable. I wish Prime Minister Modi a long, healthy life and a long tenure, but nobody is indispensable in a democracy. That's A. Let's say some of the things Karan took up and the respected ambassador took up. One, ambassador will remember in 1967-68, India did defeat China in a war. It's not the first time that India taught China a lesson. We had Chinese bodies lying at Nathula and Chola. When we declared Arunachal Pradesh a state, and Rajiv Gandhi, General Sundarji did the operation, China had to backtrack. In the backtracking, they lost the most number of soldiers they've ever lost in their history without a single bullet being fired. So it's not that India hasn't shown China its dominance. Let's come to what Karan has said. Yes, India is dealing with the US in its own terms. It always did. When we signed an NSG, when we were part of the NSG group, the 123 agreement, India refused to sign the NSG agreement, and yet the exception was made for India on its own terms and conditions. Let me remind the respected ambassador, the BJP along with the left came down to defeat the government. That's point number one. Let's say what Karan's today talking about Russia. I'm extremely proud my Prime Minister is buying oil from Russia. It's a good thing to do. We have our old relationship with Russia. How are you going to pay Russia? Russia has come to India and said, we don't want your rupees anymore. We know that China, Pakistan and Russia form an axis on oil, on gas, on wheat. Pakistan's buying Russian oil on Chinese currency. India can't do it rightfully so. How are you going to pay it? Have you got an exception from the US to pay in dollars? You haven't. Okay. Like you had the exception in Iran. So there are challenges. When I say that India needs to punch more, India did punch in 2004 to 2010 when India led the world out of the global recession, says Barack Hussein Obama, who the respected ambassador quoted. So India has always had an historical importance. India has been a strategic friend of the US. Its importance will increase, but that must be celebrated, and we must extract our pound of flesh. We must not let go of that. We must have an equal relationship on equal footing.
Okay, at least I'm glad we are now talking about the nitty-gritties, Abhijit, about how exactly are we going to be paying Russia. So we're not quibbling anymore about, is this a democracy? Is this not a democracy? Have we slid into dictatorship? Are these the dark ages? Now we're a democracy, but paisa kidhar se aayega?
But paisa kahan se aayega?
Sorry, paisa kahan se aayega? How do we pay them? We have the money. Sorry, Abhijit, I apologize.
So, there's lots of things that India can provide Russia with, including purchases of arms with actual foreign currency that Russia needs. So, that's never been a problem. Remember, the stopping of Russia accepting rupees has not resulted in the stopping of imports of Russian oil and gas. Right? We'll always find a method of settlement. Either in euros or in Chinese yen or in IMF. I don't know if IMF international guarantees work anymore with Russia, but we'll find the way. That is not an issue. I think the settlement, the modus of payment is never an issue. When you go to a restaurant, for example, some restaurants don't have PhonePe, Paytm. and then you agree that you'll pay a waiter and the waiter will settle the bill for you or whatever. This is how it works. So this isn't a hill it isn't even an anthill to climb.
Okay. I think at least over the larger narrative, Shyam Prasad Meka, we are in agreement over here. Domestic politics is on the one side, and the larger message has hit home, and it was given from within the US Congress.
Bravo.
See, domestic politics is different, and our foreign policy should be away from the domestic politics, and that's what India has been doing all this while, except perhaps in the recent years, we are trying to address everything to the domestic audiences rather than our international policy. You can see Mr. Rahul Gandhi in US clearly told, in terms of dealing with Russia, our policy, if Congress government comes, our policy won't be much different from what BJP government is doing right now. That sends a strong message to US and the world that how India tackles its foreign policy.
So it's very commendable that you are choosing to remember what he said vis-a-vis dealing with Russia, but you still cannot obliterate what he said in the UK, which is when he said, why is there no reaction? When fundamental freedoms are under attack, why is the world not reacting? That's what he said in the UK. Even in the US, he spoke about there are no institutions for the opposition to turn to. Basic freedoms are being curbed. The entire idea of democracy is under siege.
He was talking about the challenges faced by us.
And that is domestic politics taken onto American soil.
See, he was talking about the challenges faced by the democracy in India, which he is entitled to, and he's raised up the right issues. I don't see any problem with that. And why we are becoming such an insecure democracy, I don't understand. And it's up to the BJP and their bandwagon to continue to bash Rahul Gandhi and Congress party. But what they are missing is they are ending up in an echo chamber and they are losing out the larger message from the people of India.
Okay. Is it a sign of an insecure democracy? I think everyone's very slowly starting to shake their head. BJP. All the adoration is slowly seeping out. I'll take a reaction from Ambassador Vora, Karan Verma and Abhijit Iyer Mitra, but on the other side of a very quick break. Don't go anywhere. Also, some more key points that the Prime Minister made. We're going to come back with that in a minute. Don't go anywhere. With just about 9 months left for the union elections, the elections to the Lok Sabha of India, you can imagine that the entire conversation around whether India is even surviving as a democracy is only going to get shriller. But the Prime Minister made it very clear where he stands, where India stands on that issue, irrespective of what is said by people within India and abroad. Listen in to what the Prime Minister said and what has been said by one of our principal leaders of opposition earlier.
There will be and there must be a contest of ideas at home. But we must also come together as one when we speak for our nation.
Well, how would you react if something, a structure 3.5 times Europe suddenly went non-democratic, right? That's happened already. That's not something that is going to happen in the future. That's already happened. But there's no reaction. And if we're talking about Europe, that's the thing that shocks me. There's no reaction. But Indian democracy is a public good. It's 3 or 4 times the size of the United States in terms of numbers. The so-called defenders of democracy, which are the United States, European countries, seem to just be oblivious that a huge chunk of the democratic model has come undone.
Okay, Karan Verma, are you churlish? You can't take a little bit of criticism on the chin?
Well, we all can, I'm sure, but let's understand this. Here, when Mr. Rahul Gandhi says absence of democracy, he's not even saying that democracy has gone down or something. He says one morning you wake up and you find out that democracy is gone, wiped out. I think no Congress spokesperson, as intelligent as they may be, as articulate as they may be, can actually rationalize this. They know deep down that this was an immature statement, factually incorrect statement, which was in horrible taste. And it didn't augur well for the Congress people as well. Their foot soldiers also had a tough time trying to rationalize this. Tehseen is gracious. He's given up on rationalizing this. Mr. Mika might try it once or twice, but he'll, alas, succumb again, because it's as clear as it gets. It's black and white that he said this. And he said that, why are you not reacting? As if coercing them to react. I mean, I don't know what he wanted in terms of a reaction. But I think they didn't order well, but it was water off a duck's back. Let's understand this. Because
Ambassador Vora,
today,
you know, many would argue in a democracy, it is, you know, a boxing ring of sorts. It is a melting pot of ideas. And there is one idea that Mr. Gandhi put forth. The Prime Minister answered. That's a democracy, isn't it?
I couldn't agree with you more, ma'am. Somebody has accused us of being an illiberal democracy. Ma'am, if you can find out, do let us know if there is a liberal dictatorship running around somewhere in the world. We'd be very interested in knowing. I just want to say simply, ma'am, as special advisor to 3 governments in Africa, and I'm not being facetious, in at least 2 of them, several ministers, and only half jokingly, have said, Mr. Ambassador, can you spare Narendra Modi on wet lease to our countries for 2 years? Because we want him to generate the same kind of self-confidence, self-respect, and self-reliance that he has managed to do for the people of India. Ma'am, I'm 72 years. I've seen it all. All I can say is that in 1947, our bodies became free. When we installed the statue of Netaji Subhash Bose on Kartavya Path, our minds became free. And with the new parliament building, our spirits have become free, ma'am.
Let me read out a few more of the headlines that I'm seeing today morning, Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Speaking of democracy and healthy criticism, etc., the Washington Post says Prime Minister Modi focuses on India's growth in congressional speech. He did not address critics' allegations of human rights abuses during his second visit to a joint meeting on the Hill. Strange, because that is literally what he spoke about when he said that all communities are safe and thriving in our country.
Padmaja, if you play that clip again, he addressed that question very, very directly. You know, I mean, he didn't even try to shy away from it. But, you know, the Washington Post is known to fabricate things. There's a very famous columnist who has claimed a lot of things, who has never produced a single audio tape to back it up. And by the time the court demands those audio tapes be backed up, that novelist will come up with something like the rats ate the audio tape, or the audio tapes got corrupted, fungus ate the audio tape, or something like that. So, you know, with an editorial standard like that, remember, this is the same Washington Post that ran the Russiagate hoax, which is now comprehensively disproved. This is the same Washington Post where the current serving president's son is been caught on tape demanding bribes in the name of his father from Ukrainians, cavorting with underage children, and the Washington Post refuses to cover it. I don't know why, you know, we consider these white people publications to be some kind of standard of outstanding journalism, when in fact they're the flag bearers of the declining standards of journalism.
Well, because also a lot of people in Mr. Meka's party since last night have been tweeting a clip of a journalist, an American journalist who interviewed President Obama, and I suspect that that is pretty much going to be the talking point of the day as well, Mr. Meka.
No, what's the question in here? Okay, Mr.
The question is, Abhijit Iyer Mitra is saying, why give so much weightage to people who literally do not want to hear what Modi said? What PM Modi said is, here is what I think about democracy, here is what I think about minority rights, here is what I think about human rights abuses. They write a headline saying he did not address any of these issues. And then you're tweeting clips of American journalists with a former president interview. Why? What's the point?
Okay, see, Padmaja, people having different opinions and different perspectives to look and react at the developments from their own vantage points. So it's not like we should all sit together and do some Modi Mahima Mandal, do the bhajan, right? It's not about that. Now, coming to one of our panelists saying about we becoming very proud when a road is renamed, we are becoming a proud nation when a building is built. I'm sorry, my friend, this is India. When we declared ourselves as a republic with the constitution, millions of people in this country started feeling proud. That's the proud moment. And we don't lack in pride until Mr. Narendra Modi.
I think
please come out of that.
Ambassador
wait. No, wait a minute. We cannot, please. There are one or two people or a couple of people who might be feeling, started feeling proud as an Indian only after 2014, but that's not the national story. Please stop doing that narrative, which is actually an insult to this country, be it on this soil or on foreign soil.
I think the reference was to your comment.
I have nothing to say, ma'am. We are not trained to engage in this kind of dialogue. He's entitled to his opinion, I'm entitled to mine. It's just that I travel extensively across the country, India, as well as in Africa, and I've seen the kind of respect that they have for India. If our friend, who he called me his friend, thank you very much. If our colleague disagrees, more thought to his mind.
All right, final comment, Tehseen Poonawalla.
First, agreeing with what the Congress spokesperson said, I've traveled East Africa extensively, Tanzania, Kenya. I love East Africa. If there's any other country I can live, if I ever leave India, would be Tanzania. I've seen the respect before 2014. They love Nehru, they love Gandhi. You know the Tanzanian and the Kenyan history with India. It's not that it's happened after 2014. They love Shah Rukh Khan. Please, let's not make it about one person. Democracy is about celebrating diversity. I was always proud to be an Indian. I am proud to be an Indian. I will be proud to be an Indian till my last breath, last drop of blood. But let's make some specific points about Prime Minister Modi. Once again, congratulations. His visit so far has been successful. What I want to see in concrete terms is what India gets. The ambassador very rightly spoke about the HAL defense deal and the engines that have come in. Can you, Padmaja, with respect, show me something that's been signed? It's all been put out through sources, and I hope India gets it. India deserves it. But where has it been so far signed? I want it to be done. Can you tell us, Abhijit rightly spoke about there are various methods of paying Russia, but that exception has not been made. You cannot pay Russia in Chinese currency. Euro is not allowed. We haven't got the exception for Iran. So I am saying, yes, there are methods. Yes, there is success. Yes, the road ahead is tough, and Prime Minister will crave out the path. But I am hoping that that path is concrete, and I see that on paper, not just through sources, and that's my only difference. If India a democracy, of course India is a democracy. Is it a perfect democracy? No democracy is perfect. Does India have to work upon herself? Of course we have to work upon ourselves. But to say India is not a democracy, I disagree with that completely. India is a democracy, and India will always remain a democracy till people like me exist who love India before 2014 and will love India after 2024.
That's lovely, and I think we should include everyone on this panel in that. Till people like everyone on this panel exists, India will be a democracy, because I'm pretty certain everyone loves India. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Prior to 2014.
Thanks very much, gentlemen, for having joined me. I'm taking a very quick break, but on the other side, there is a mega exclusive coming up, a big voice from the United States speaking exclusively to Times Now. Don't go anywhere.